What's going on, Metropolitans? It's barely November, but the hot stove is firing up. We have a lot of news and notes to tackle today. Phil Maton is out. Qualifying offers have gone out, and Steve Cohen does the Lord's work. We're talking about all of that and more on this jam-packed edition of Mets Digest. What's going on, everybody? Flobo Boyce here, rocking with you as we try to navigate what the Mets are trying to do to give themselves a fighting chance in the 2025 season. Thank you so much for being a part of the crew. Well, myself alongside Mike D'Angelo want to be able to give that content to you as efficiently as possible. So do us a favor, don't be part of that not subscribe group. Subscribe to the video, like the video, and share it because that's how we grow as a channel. So, remember Phil Maton? I do. During the trade deadline last season, it really was a decision about what we wanted to do. We decided to be buyers. Phil Maton came over from Tampa Bay and was really good. Maybe a hair shy of being lights out during the regular season run. Unfortunately, the postseason run is what he's going to be most known for, and that's where he didn't really produce the way we thought it was. Kind of was one of the worst regressions we saw from the pitching staff. But it's now official based on what the team was going to do. They declined Phil Maton's option. It was worth $7.75 million, and they bought it out for $250,000. Phil Maton can possibly be brought back, but as of right now, he is out. This one comes from Danny Abriano at SNY TV. SNY does fantastic work getting the inside information with the team. It says, with Maton out, the picture for now, the locks for the 2025 bullpen at this point are likely to be Edwin Diaz, Reed Garrett, and Nunez, but everything else could be up in the air. Ryan Stanek, who was a key late inning option in the postseason, is a free agent. Remember, Stanek was nasty in the postseason. Additionally, Adam Ottavino is a free agent and seems unlikely to return given the Mets' lack of reliance on him during the postseason run. That's for sure. Ottavino was used for lower leverage situations. Also free agents are Drew Smith and Brooks Raley, who are both recovering from Tommy John surgery. So the bullpen situation is still pretty fluid, but Phil Maton, someone, if you would have asked me in September whether or not he was going to be in the team, is now looking on the outs. But I have to mention Ottavino because Ottavino was an interesting case. Remember last year, he opted out of his deal and came back for a lower rate, and it looks like it worked out for him as far as the financial side of things. But as the season rolled on, it definitely looked like the Mets were going to move on from him. But I got to say this because this is definitely the offseason. Why not for silly news? Adam Ottavino's in the Dominican Winter League right now. He's actually went scoreless in his inning appearance. I'm going to give a shot to Mesmerize Online, one of the few outlets that were out there for years before we became a channel. Got props for them. Adam Ottavino, man, I guess his redemption tour starts now. I don't know about you, but during the last season, it looked more and more apparent that Mendoza had other plans when it came to the pitching mix. When is that? But I wanted to ask you a question at this point. How do you feel about Phil Maton not being on the team as of right now? I mean, he could be brought back for a number of different ways, but his option has been declined by the club, so it looks like, at least on the surface, he won't be back. Would have wanted to bring it back? Because I'm on the fence here. I understand during the postseason how frustrating it was, but at the same time, there's a lot of pitchers and staff that I trust a little bit less than Phil Maton himself. And he had those steely eyes, always looking past the interviewers at those post-game conferences. So, moving on. Also, what came out today were the qualifying offers. Qualifying offers are basically 1-year deals that are offered from teams to impending free agents. The hopes he'll have kind of a steady agreement that's kind of settled on both parties, like a pre-negotiated rate. If a player declines that qualifying offer, they become a free agent. So talking with the press today, General Manager or President of Baseball Operations David Stearns had made it known that the qualifying offers went out to 3 particular players: Pete Alonso, Sean Manaea, and Luis Severino. So just to give you a bit of a backstory, Pete Alonso, kind of a formality. It looked like Pete was going to go into free agency. We were talking about that for weeks and months. $21 million a year, or $21.05 million is the qualifying offer for this year, which is a calculated rate beforehand. Would it be a little bit less than what Pete can actually get on his own? And it's only 1 year, so absolutely Pete would be more than likely to decline that qualifying offer in hopes of getting a more long-term deal. Sean Manaea, also a formality. Here is somebody that declined his option this year. You got to offer him the qualifying offer, which would have been a raise had he said yes, but I only can imagine if you're Sean Manaea, you would probably want to do a multiple year deal, especially when you had a season that was trending upward the way that it did. But Luis Severino is kind of the outlier for me. I want to know your comments below about bringing Severino back if given the opportunity. Not to say he's not worthy of a spot in the rotation, especially the rotation as it stands now, as fluid as it is, but with his inning count and is also his regression in the postseason, I thought for sure it would have been either a deal or bust. And so the fact that he's even considered for a qualifying offer was a little bit surprising to me, but it's a pleasant surprise. You could do a lot worse than Severino. One of the reclamation projects we talked about on this channel about taking pitchers that were seen to be done or washed or having mechanical things to work on, and they found a way to make themselves that much better. I can't forget that late season complete game that Severino pitched this season. So, of course, having him on the team would be a pleasant surprise, but it's a surprise to me. I wonder what Severino wants to do, and if he ever makes a formal decision whether or not he's going to accept that offer or negotiate a deal or decline the offer outright to be a free agent. You best believe here on Mets Digest, we're going to talk about that. And lastly tonight, kind of an interesting take going on in the offseason as well. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Mets adult fantasy camps. A lot of the teams in Major League Baseball, they do this where you can pay a certain amount to go out there and practice and pretend to be a part of the team. I wanted to be in the Mets fantasy camp a couple seasons ago until I realized they were charging $6,000. Anyway, team owner Steve Cohen went out there, almost a PR thing, but almost reaching out to the many people who were able to swing that high price tag to pretend to be a New York Met in Florida this week. Week 1 of a 3-session camp. There's different weeks throughout the off season. Steve came out, shook hands, took some pictures with fans, and got himself ingrained with the organization top to bottom. And the reason why I want to bring this up, shout out to Anthony Tacoma, who follows the Mets outright, and he also has his own following as well. But shout out to Steve Cohen for doing this, because frankly, we always talked about what it means to be a good owner. And yes, the deep pockets of Cohen is something we talk about all the time. And yes, empowering people to work in the front office and all that stuff is great. But to have an owner to be as accessible to people out there in fantasy camp is kind of a cool deal. I can imagine if you put down $5 or $6 grand and the owner of the team that you are fantasy playing for comes out and thanks you for your time, a little bit of icing on the cake. Hey, I know the Mets are one of the best teams in baseball, but little by little, I think the world is starting to realize too. So now I turn this over to you. Thoughts about today's news. Maton, are you happy? Are you sad? Are you relieved? Are you frustrated that as of right now, he will not be on the team next year? And the qualifying offers, Pete Alonso, Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, any surprises in that? And lastly, let me know, I mean, on a personal level, would you pay $6 grand to be in the Mets fantasy camp? I mean, if you do, please let me know, and hopefully you can loan me some cash because times be hard. This is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. This is Mets Digest. We'll be back soon with more Mets news and notes because it's the off season and that's going to come fast and furious. Until next time, as always, it's LGM to the bitter end.